Agribusiness, brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. It works for everyone.
This is Ag AM in Kansas. It is truly the lifeblood of Kansas agriculture, certainly in the western part of the state, when you consider the importance of the Ogallala Aquifer, that vast underground body of water that crop irrigators and cattle producers routinely utilize in the western part of the state. The condition of the Ogallala has been of concern for some years now, as that water resource has been depleted. Conserving the Ogallala Aquifer was the theme of a special session at K-State's recent Research and Extension Conference on the campus. Invited to speak to that condition was a USDA Agricultural Research Service researcher from Bushland, Texas, in the Texas Panhandle area near Amarillo. His name is David Brower, and he shared thoughts on not only what's going on with his research, but some of the active thoughts on how to preserve this valuable water resource. David, thank you for sparing a few moments with us, and starting with a bit on the orientation of your research at the ARS facility at Bushland. Obviously, you're looking at the Ogallala constantly there, right?
Absolutely. As you alluded to, water from the Ogallala has fueled our agriculture, has increased our farm income, and therefore our communities' economies for the past 60 years. Unfortunately, the Ogallala is a finite resource, meaning what we take out today, we can't use in the future. And at this point, in various parts of West Texas and in western Kansas, we have significantly depleted that resource. So the question is how do we prolong the economic longevity that we are getting from that resource? And one of the things that is much different as we go forward here today is we really will need to conserve water. In the past, there's been a tendency when we have developed new technologies to conserve water to use that water elsewhere on that same farm to increase production. And so in West Texas in particular, you can just see, the decline in the water table is just continuous over the last 50, 60 years. We're not going to be able to do that anymore. When we make water conservation technologies today and put them in place, we're probably not going to use that water. We're going to leave it in the ground.
Just to put it into context, how depleted is the Ogallala? That's contingent upon where you are along the aquifer.
Right, and as I've said in my talk, is USGS, U.S. Geological Survey, says that we've depleted about 50% of the whole aquifer, which is meaningless. In actually parts of West Texas, and I think here in western Kansas too, we've depleted the aquifer so there's less than 30 feet of saturated thickness, and therefore viable irrigation is no longer possible. That's still a minority part of our landscape. But if we're not careful, in 20 years, that will be the majority of the land use. It will go back to dry land farming or to rangeland if we don't conserve it. Now, in Texas and in Kansas, we've had water policy changes which mandate some sort of restrictions or facilitate some reduction in use. In Texas in particular, we've had a very public discussion to set what we want the aquifer to look like in 50 years. For a large part of the area over the Ogallala aquifer, the public has decided they want 50% remaining in 50 years. And so that cuts down how much water farmers will be able to use for irrigation. That will empower the groundwater districts to set regulations and policies to meet those kind of objectives. I know in Kansas that you've already have gone through this process a little bit differently, but have set up pumping limits and regulations on how much water can be used.
We'll talk more about the future of the Ogallala Aquifer with the USDA's David Brower in a few moments. This is Ag AM in Kansas.
Agribusiness, brought to you by Briggs Dodge Business Link. We keep your business rolling.
Welcome back to Ag AM in Kansas, where we're talking the future of the Ogallala Aquifer in western Kansas and other parts of the Great Plains. Our guest is David Brower, USDA research scientist at the department's research facility near Bushland, Texas. You talked there, though, of a rather ambitious goal as per Texas part here, 50% of the aquifer still intact 50 years down the road. How to attain that is the challenge for researchers as well as users.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, we need to conserve water. We need to lower the withdrawal rates if we're going to meet these objectives. Fortunately, I think we're in a really exciting time where we have a lot of tools at our disposal. Our irrigation systems of today are 25–30% more efficient than they were 25 years ago. That is an enormous achievement through both science, technology, and our commercial irrigation firms. Just an amazing thing that we've managed to accomplish. In the future, what we're going to have to do in many parts over the Ogallala is to apply just enough water to maximize our crop production and no more. This is what many people refer to as deficit irrigation. And we're going to have to be very strategic about it because we're either going to not be able to pump all the water or some policy will limit us. For deficit irrigation to really work, we need an idea of how much water we have at a location, how we can budget that to various crops, what crops can use that water best, and how can we deliver that water to that crop at the most critical time. Whether that's looking at a sensor that's mounted on the center pivot that gives you an idea of the water stress of the plant, whether it's some sort of soil moisture reading technology, or another crop detection or crop moisture stress detector that's in the field, not on the pivot. So we have several different types of technologies that ARS, Kansas State, Texas AgriLife are working on. In the program that I lead, the Ogallala Aquifer program, it's multi-state involving both Kansas and Texas. And one of the real exciting things that I've seen grown out of that project is collaborations that may not have occurred are occurring. Some of the nice stuff that Dr. Clockey and Dr. Lamb are now doing in western Kansas are being transferred and modified and adapted for ready use in West Texas, so we don't have to start over from nothing, and so that's going to really facilitate the transfer of information and developing technologies. The other important picture on all of this is more than likely a lot of the land that we can't irrigate is going to go to dry land farming. How do we decrease the risk of that? How do we make the yields more uniform over a variety of conditions? And that's also research that the program and ARS is working on.
It has to be a comprehensive picture to make it work for the long pull then.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, again, really an exciting aspect of this Ogallala Aquifer program to me is within a federal agency like Agricultural Research Service, we have some restrictions on what we're able to do because of our mandate. And when we partner up with the states, like Kansas State, we're able to pull in expertise, whether it's in hydrology or economics, that we may not have to do that comprehensive research and education. The other aspect of the program that has always excited me is we decided at the very beginning education, whether it's to the public in general or providing very technical training to crop consultants and farmers, was going to be a major part of the program, one of our 7 priority areas. A lot of times what I've seen in the past with Agricultural Research Service, we haven't done as good of a job with that technology transfer education as we could. Again, we don't hire those kind of people, but the states do. So having this formal partnership really enables us to do that job better than we would outside of the partnership.
Important observations there on conserving the Ogallala Aquifer, as expressed by a USDA Agricultural Research Service scientist based at Bushland, Texas, David Brower. He spoke on that topic at the recent K-State Research and Extension Annual Conference in Manhattan. You're watching Ag AM in Kansas.
Agribusiness, brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. It works for everyone.
Welcome back to Ag AM in Kansas, where we're talking the future of the Ogallala Aquifer in western Kansas and other parts of the Great Plains. Our guest is David Brower, USDA research scientist at the department's research facility near Bushland, Texas. So, as you would visit with an irrigator at random out there, discuss what is the first step for the individual to take. What would you advise?
Well, one of the first things, and it's very basic, is understand your resource. You know, what is your pump capacity? You know, how much water can you put down? That really then starts dictating what you can do and what your options are. I give a lot of credit, and I've mentioned him once before, Norm Plotke has been developing software to help farmers do that, to match what their supply is with what they can grow and add that economic component. And so there's some really fine tools. Then the other part, and again, it's coming out of Norm Plotke's work, is as you progress through the cropping year, and you know how much water you may be able to apply from here on out, you know, is it worth putting on that water? What kind of shape are you in? So a more fine-tuned tool for doing in-season determination of irrigation. The other thing is I'd ask, you know, what is the farmer's strategy for putting water down? You know, quite honestly, if you have a low capacity system, you know, your strategy may be you turn it on and you leave it on, but maybe not. I mean, some of the exciting results that are coming out is this question, is it better to spread your water over the whole field or concentrated? In a typical year in our area, I would say that concentrating your water can give you a boost if you're growing cotton. If you're growing corn, probably yes also. Some of the other crops, I'm not so sure, but that's going to be another decision. I mean, I understand that a farmer has an awful lot invested in a center pivot system, and to ask them only to irrigate on half of it may not seem the best idea. But the questions that we're coming up with or need to ask is, what can we do on that other half of that pivot to capture the precipitation? And so when we go into the next season and we're irrigating on that half, how can we better use that stored precipitation? So I kind of see we have this deficit irrigation idea, but we also have this idea of how do we manage that water resource in time, multi-year time. And I think that's going to be another key to this puzzle.
Broadly, it is a monumental challenge, but by the sound of it and by the discussions that are carrying on, it sounds like it can be met.
Oh, it sure can be. And, you know, there again, I think it gets back to what you said about a comprehensive program. It's very interesting that some of the techniques that have really helped increase yields under dryland farming may help us in deficit irrigation. Some of them are going to definitely have to be tweaked. I mean, some work out at Tribune, the station out at Tribune by Alan Schmiegel, you know, shows that yes, no-till's great for dryland crops, but you got to be real careful when you go to deficit irrigation, because when you have that residue, that extra residue, how do we adapt the planting procedure to get enough plants out there to take advantage of the water that you are going to supply? So there's still some challenges out there, but again, with that comprehensive program, getting people from different disciplines talking together, I think there's some real hope and some real innovation that is going to come out of this.
Lots of sound ideas floating out there. David, we appreciate you coming to Kansas State, sharing this message, and we appreciate your time right here.